Today in Climb Lab, I present to you why the Tindeq Progressor, which is a dynamometer, is the modern and current training tool you should have to maximize the power of your finger strength in climbing. So pay attention, because I'm going to talk about many things, some scientific, and I'm going to explain why this is the present and the future of finger strength training in climbing. Let's go to the video. Tindeq Progressor is a dynamometer. It's simply that, a dynamometer. It's something that when we pull on it, has a metal cell that with deformation gives a signal, and that signal is interpreted as a force. In this case, you can measure in kilograms, newtons, pounds, whatever you want. Tindeq has been on the market for quite some time. This was the first one I had about 4 years ago. It must have been on the market for about 5 years. And at the beginning, it started very timidly, but especially in the last, I would say 2 years, it has picked up a lot. And why? Because as a tool for measuring maximum force, for resistance strength work, for maximum strength work, for measurements like RFD, like critical force, or many other measurements, it's a marvel, okay? And from that point of view, in this video, I'm going to show you why it's a marvel, okay? In future videos, I will show you all the features of this. But this toy alone is not enough. What you need to do is have a monoboard. In my case, I use the Black 2025, a couple of, what's it called? Carabiners. And we have to pull from this, okay? We can attach it to a bar, or we can attach it to a tree, or we can attach it to a platform, or we can attach it to our legs, or we can pull with one hand and the other. There are 1,000 possibilities, but the dynamometer has to work with some device. In this case, a monoboard that allows me to apply force to the dynamometer, and that it gives me a signal indicating how much I'm pulling, to let us know how it works, okay? To let us really know how much we are pulling in kilograms, newtons, or whatever. This gadget connects to an app on your phone, okay? And this app on your phone, you can download, it's free, and everything else, okay? But to the point here, I already have it. I'm going to show the app here. Here I already have it, and I've already configured it and everything else, but here I have a lot of data. I have the lift data, which simply allows you to see the load. We can see it here. I pull here, and what is up and to the left are the kilos. Up and to the right is the time. Down and to the left is the maximum you pulled, and down to the left is the average. But more importantly than that, much more important than that, are the curves that I am applying below, okay? That is the void curve that I am going to make. That will be, we are going to explain much later. We have other things like the peak load. The peak load is your maximum strength. And here it is interesting because I am not going to explain how to learn to use the Tindeq, but this is simply an instruction. But here I can see, for example, the curves. For example, here I have measured many of my students. I have many students measured here, but I have myself, okay? So for example, here I have Gonzo 20 millimeters, and I have, what I'm showing you is the curve. A short announcement. Finger strength and Tyndale course lasts 5 hours. Finger strength planning course lasts 7 hours. The videos are already recorded, so if you want them, you can buy and watch them immediately. And if you also want to train with me, just write to me on Instagram, whether it's for the Tyndale finger strength courses, finger strength planning, or if you want to train with me. Of all the peak loads I have done from March 2024 to January 2025. And here I can see, for example, how I was at the beginning, and all these curves I will explain to you at some point what they mean. But I can see all the evolution, the entire evolution of my maximum finger strength over almost a year, okay? With its respective declines, with its respective increases. When I plateaued, what happened here and everything else. We will look at this very, very closely, but in another chapter. Here I also have endurance, which I can apply here as I wish. For example, here I have the endurance of a student, how it went for them. We will also look at that later. The RFE, how we derive an RFE. For example, here I have an RFE from Gonzo from the course I did, okay? We also have repeaters, which in a way is how I do a training session with the sets, the repetition, the work, the rest, the pauses, etc., etc. Right hand, left hand. And finally, I have critical force, okay, which is a measure of from here, how these are derived, a measure of, in a way, how your endurance strength is. A bit more complicated than that, but just to give an idea. Here, actually, I don't really use critical force, but here I have a couple of measurements, both as an example and a real measurement that I actually did for Tomas, okay? And finally, as of January 2025, there are also situations where you can see here all the workouts from different people who upload this to the application. And here you can see examples and check, see how, if people liked it or not, what is the most popular, who created it, or the tags, etc., etc. Okay? Regarding Tindeq, people ask me, hey, this is a commercial situation that has been going on for 5 years, but it has become very, very well known precisely in the last 2 years. I would say that in the last year, it has become very, very popular. And if there is any scientific evidence, the answer is yes. This is a study that was done in 2021, which aimed to validate if the Tindeq as a dynamometer was equivalent to a dynamometer with a high number of exercises. The problem with Tindeq is that it has a limited number of exercises, and that means it doesn't have as much information when we do some work over time. So what they did here was compare the Tindeq with another dynamometer that is used for, what's it called? For dynamometer work specifically for exercise, okay? And they, in a certain way, they compared and checked if there was a difference between one and the other. And the truth is that there wasn't much difference because they were practically the same. So the statistical differences were practically insignificant, okay? And that demonstrated that the Tindeq, as well as this other dynamometer, were practically the same, and from that point of view, this supported the use of the Tindeq as a tool for physical activity. Okay, here are some curves that show they were practically the same, that the difference was practically nil. Although here you have to take this with a grain of salt, because I personally believe that Tindeq is a wonderful tool that provides wonderful curves, but it has some small flaws when you want to measure a RFE. But well, that will be for another video. You need to know that although people, when they think of Tindeq, think in kilos, okay? But that's a mistake. And not having the concept of how modern strength is currently worked. Modern strength is worked in curves. In fact, to all my students and all the people I train, I don't teach them to say, hey, do 10 kilos for me, do 5 kilos for me, do 30 kilos for me, do 40 kilos for me. That no longer applies. Although I do give loads, for example, I will only give examples. I give loads, for example, this mesocycle, we are going to do a work strength maximum between I don't know, 25 and 28. So people go and set up the Tindeq for that. But then the way we know that it is really doing their job well is given by curves. And the curves are everything. They are everything. And that's the good thing about Tindeq. Tindeq doesn't give you a measurement, because for that we could buy a digital scale that connects to your cell phone. And from that point of view, I don't have to buy a toy like the Tindeq. But the problem with scales that connect to your cell phone is that they only give you one measurement, and that measurement without a curve means nothing. I'm going to give an example here, but I'm going to talk a lot about curves. Here I have my Tindeq, and if I tell someone apply force, and that person comes and does this, I could see that person made 7.5 kilos for me. But when I see the curve they made there, it's a curve that goes up and down and I can't maintain it. But if I tell another person, make me 7.5 kilos, and that person reaches 7.5 kilos and maintains it well, I can see the curve and say, yes, yes. Actually, the curve is flat. It's well made. And you are maintaining those 7.5 kilos as it should be. But another person who is poorly trained, I tell them, okay, let's see, make me 7.5 kilos. And the person goes and throws it and does what I'm doing now, that sawing motion that appears there, and it falls and rises, but more or less stays around 7 kilos. That means that just by looking at the curve, I can say, you know what? You can't maintain this load. No, you can't handle it. It's that simple. So just by looking at the curve, even though that person still managed 7 kilos, I know that the person can't handle that load. And that's the good thing about Tindeq. Tindeq is not about measuring a kilo. It's about measuring the curves. How I handle the curves. We are going to talk a lot about this because this is in a way an introductory video on what a Tindeq means, how to measure it, and everything. How will it end? We will continue here, cancel. So here we have a lot of things. We have the units. I measure the units in kilos. But you could measure them in newtons, which some people use in newtons. But it doesn't make any sense because it's kilo multiplied by 0.98, which is the acceleration force on Earth. People don't understand it. They don't apply it. For scientific work, it might be useful to understand the difference between mass and force. It might also be useful, but in real life, I use kilos, okay? I don't use pounds because there are no serious, real scientific works that use pounds. We all use kilos, okay? Simply, I use kilos because it's understood and because my students understand it. You can use a bunch of languages like English, Spanish, German, Italian, etc., right? I use English, and you can also choose to make your application bright or not. In this case, I'm used to it being dark. The information about the application and also about your Tindeq. In this case, I have the Progressor 200, version 2.0.0, the identification, and so on. And the name of the Progressor, okay, of this gadget, this gadget, has a number. For example, this Progressor is 2934. And if you look here, I put my name on it, okay? And I put 2934. Why? Because sometimes on my wall, for example, all my students have Tindeq, not all, but most of them. So when they turn it on, it's all to go warm up. Suddenly you see, you go to set up your Tindeq, you go and a bunch of numbers appear and you say, which one of all these could it be? You go and see the number that corresponds to your Tindeq, the battery, the feed, which is in a certain way. What you think about this and everything else, that's up to you. You can get in touch. And here are other things that are notes and so on. The account, if I want to, log out of the account to go to another applica, to another account, or delete my account, whatever it may be, to the point. Tindeq has become, in the last 2 years, and especially the last year, a device that many people were buying. And I would say that most do not get the work out of it that they really should. For example, they don't know how to work with curves. And Tindeq is made to work with curves. It's true that it measures kilos and a bunch of things, blah, blah, blah. But the curves are really the modern way to know how we are, how one is working the load, okay? The other thing to be careful about is the monoboards that you are not going to use. At the moment, since this has become popular and in theory is all the rage and money, well, people are coming and making monoboards. It's also my personal opinion, because you don't have to agree with this, that I've seen that most monoboards don't meet what they should, and people do it because they have no idea, because there isn't like a scientific backing for why you made the monoboard the way you should have. In this case, I am using block 2025 because it was something I designed along with other guys here in Chile and some ideas from Spain, etc. Okay, but you have to make sure that the monoboard corresponds and produces the work that you need to specify. For example, monoboards cannot be balanced. When you pull, it shouldn't be able to balance. The block 2025, when you pull, has zero balance, zero, okay? And because of the rope system, it will never move. And the other thing about the monoboard, this isn't the what's it called, the monoboard video, but at the moment we are not only working with a normal edge, but we are also working with a stepped edge in addition to the normal edge. That's a big topic that we won't discuss now. If you want to buy a Tindeq, go ahead. Not just for finger strength work, but for everything that involves warming up, recruiting, endurance strength work, RFD measurements, critical force measurements, endurance strength measurements. If you know how to use a Tindeq Progressor as it should be used, okay, the wonders are countless, from being able to enter very well, very recruited to climb your project, from knowing how to perform a maximum force, and based on the curves, knowing if one is doing it right or wrong, endurance strength work, RFD measurements for bouldering work, endurance strength measurements to know if one has the adequate endurance, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so guys, this pull is the Tindeq from its first device to the modern one that comes with an internal battery. There are many other things coming, well. Many people are researching, many people are using it, many people are using it well, many people are using it poorly. But the important thing is that these are the 9 airs, the boards, training boards, the classics, the edge meter, the X board, the board from here, from there, made of resin or wood. Soon they will be a thing of the past, and that's how it should be. Although, I bet that in 10 more years we will still be using boards, probably due to the ignorance of not knowing how to use a dynamometer. But the dynamometer, in this case the Tindeq Progress, is here to stay, and it stayed for the better. And whoever knows how to use it or teaches it properly will earn paradise in the strength of the bone. You already found out what it meant. This, which is a dynamometer, in this case the Tindeq Progress 200, and this is the present and the future. Guys, if you like the video, please give it a like. It helps me a lot to keep making videos, and also because there will be tons of this and many scientific things related to climbing training. And if you haven't subscribed, a subscription would also help me a lot, so you don't miss this, because the way to train finger strength is in this, and I'm sure I'll tell you how. A hug. Bye bye.